Good evening. Welcome to the 2021 History Makers Gala, sponsored by the McLean County Museum of History. I'm Bob Watkins. I'm the board president of the McLean County Historical Society, which runs the Museum of History. And we are streaming to you live tonight from the Governor Pfeiffer Room of the old McLean County Courthouse, which houses the museum. We are excited tonight to be honoring a number of people that are able to join me, thankfully, in person here in this room. We're going to be honoring Carol Ringer, Jerry Ringer, Barbara Finley Stewart, Marilyn Sutherland, and Robert Sutherland. And they have been able to join us here along with their friends and family, and they're having a nice dinner in front of me here. You can't see that, but it's very festive and gala-like here, so we are excited to have them here tonight. They're enjoying some good dinner and libations, and we are very much looking forward next year to everyone joining us for a truly in-person y'all come gala, where we get back to what we've usually have done, and we're looking very much forward to that. But this year is going to be a really special event, and we are very excited to be able to utilize technology, and we are also excited about the improving conditions around the pandemic that allow us to meet here tonight, at least partially in person, to honor these great history makers. So with that, I'm going to shoot it over to our executive director, Julie Emig, who is going to give an update on what's been going on at the McLean County Museum of History.
Thank you, Bob. Your service and leadership are deeply appreciated. Good evening and welcome to the History Makers Gala of 2021. I'm going to start by sharing an excerpt from a pantograph article that was published in June 2nd of 1910. If you've already done the math in your head, you know that was 111 years ago. I quote, "The McLean County Courthouse, with its marble walls and marble stairways. In this courthouse, there is one room which may seem strangely out of place. This is the room used by the McLean County Historical Society. Here, the forgotten past seems to be the very air that one breathes in the room. The museum and the courthouse and the various activities of the Historical Society may be used as an influence for good to the citizenship of the county." And this, I'll end with this part of the quotation, which is my favorite. "For by a proper appreciation of the action and people of the yesterday will the community gather strength and knowledge for the meeting of the conditions of the tomorrow." And here we are, and the staff tell me that we're still haunted with ghosts from the past, but fortunately they're friendly ghosts. 111 years later, in this spirit, in this room, we are delighted to celebrate local history makers who provide similar strength and knowledge to inform who we will become yet as a community. In case you didn't know, we experienced a pandemic in 2020. Even so, we remain at this museum relentlessly optimistic about what we have achieved this past year and what we plan to do in the next year. Just look what we accomplished. Next slide, please. A breathtaking light restoration. The original light fixtures had been squirreled away beneath the courthouse stairs. Executive Director Emeritus Greg Coos sent curator Susan Hartsold on a mission to dig them out of the dark. Thanks to a $255,000 grant from the Illinois Department of Natural Resources, and thanks to generous private donations, those fixtures returned to their original antique verde luster. Next slide, please. Manning Electric is still working on the restoration. The courthouse lights here in this room are next and last. They saved the hardest and most challenging ones for the last. And our local company, Emmett Scharf, has done all of the rewiring and installation. Next slide. When we first opened the museum on May 1st, visitors who came into the rotunda looked up towards the dome and audibly exclaimed, "Wow." Next slide. The ID&R grant, with additional support from our friends and donors, also funded the restoration of our restrooms. The men's restroom had last been renovated circa 1957, and the women's restroom circa 1976. Next slide, please. I admit, I wondered if we should keep the orange doors, but Charnet Associates noted that this probably wasn't the most historically authentic. It was a challenging project with multiple hiccups. You never know what you'll find when you start to dig into the walls that were constructed in 1903, but the end result is a brilliant blend of contemporary amenities, and the period reflects the appropriate style. And now, my 6-year-old daughter is no longer afraid that the toilet will overflow when she uses the restroom. Next slide, please. Despite all uncertainty and challenges of this past year, the museum has excelled due to its extraordinary staff and leadership. The true magic of our work occurs when dynamic and passionate staff make history come to life for this community. We pivoted to offer robust virtual programming, including our education department launching a series of at-home museum-inspired activities for distance learning students and families on the museum's website and social media channels. With many local partners, we began a new series called Breaking Bread in McLean County, which explores local stories of migration and immigration. Robust virtual programming also included author talks, local history presentations, and relevant expertise sharing as the community dealt with isolation and a want for online resources. The museum, working in partnership with Illinois Voices Theater Echoes, was able to offer its signature event, the Evergreen Memorial Cemetery Walk, as a totally virtual experience. And it was so well loved and so successful, the Cemetery Walk will be a hybrid event in the fall of 2021. In total, the museum was able to reach over 40,000 individuals last fiscal year through its programming. Next slide, please. Finally, our digitization efforts expanded significantly. In 2012, the museum acquired 1 million negatives from the Pantograph newspaper. These negatives possess a rich look at the county through historical documents. Local sports teams, architecture, school events, church events, agriculture and the mechanics of farming, clubs and circus community, aerial photography of landscapes, and the creation of Lake Bloomington. Because not every story was published, the majority of these materials do not exist in any other format. With support of $250,000 from a grant at the Institute for Museum and Library Sciences, we have digitized over 80,000 of these negatives. We have more to do. These are accessible to all through the Illinois State Archives, which is linked on our website. And our Stevenson Ives Library receives more than 1,500 requests annually for access to our collection. And people call us from all around the world. I also want to comment on the recent digitization of Hometown in the Corn Belt. When it was published in 1950, there were only 2 copies in existence, here and at the Bloomington Public Library. This work was made possible through a memorial gift in the name of the late museum volunteer Milan Jackson, who passed away in 2019. We are honored to share his legacy and the legacies of so many who have shared their stories and treasures with us. Next slide, please. In closing, I would be remiss if I neglected to share pictures of the crane on Main Street. You may have noticed it. The county is replacing the museum's roof. Next slide, please. We hope that we have seen the last of rain inside the building. We are grateful for this project. Thank you again for joining us this evening to celebrate history makers Jerry and Carol Ringer, Barbara Fenley Stewart, and Robert and Marilyn Sutherland. I'll hand it back to you, Bob, to kick off our official business meeting.
Thank you, Julie. Before we start the business meeting, I would be remiss if I didn't thank Julie and her staff for the incredible work they've done this past year, and I started this term as board president 2 years ago, and in that time we've had a new executive director, we now have new bathrooms, we're going to have a new roof, we're going to have new lights, and after this business meeting tonight you're going to have a new president too. So I want to thank everybody who's helped me through this time. It was a challenging term as president, but we have come through with flying colors, and that is almost entirely due to the great work of the staff. And I would also be remiss if I didn't mention the great service Greg Coos provided as interim executive director for almost 9 months last year and part of this year. So actually it was last year. So really want to give everybody on the staff a round of applause for that. All right, well, we utilize the History Makers Gala, since it's our large annual gathering, as also an opportunity to have our annual meeting of members. And for those who were online, you would have been, last night, you would have received information on how to vote for the slate of directors, as well as having waived the minutes of the last annual meeting. So I am going to call the business meeting to order. And the first thing I am going to ask for is I'm going to put forward a motion that we waive the reading of the minutes, as well as vote to approve the slate of officers and directors who have been listed and provided in both the program and in materials provided. So if I can get a motion and a second for that. With a motion and a second received, I am going to ask everyone to vote in accordance with the instructions they were provided. And we hope to have no electoral college controversies or anything like that, but my hopefully successor, Tom Eder, will be reporting back as we get to the results of the election. So with that, it is my pleasure to now turn the program over to present the I did not. So, and I was not planning to. I was just the motion included both board members and officers. So I will amend the motion to include election of both officers and board members. And can I get a motion and a second to that motion? And please now vote on the amended motion. Thank you for keeping me honest and on track, as Carolyn is very good at doing. So with that, it is now my pleasure to present a great production by our partners who have been mentioned already with their great work with the Cemetery Walk, the Illinois Voices Theater, who has produced and will be performing a video titled Hindsight is 2020. So I would commend you to take a look at this, and it will be honoring our honorees tonight. So with that, I'll turn it over to the video.
Barbara Stewart, a poem. Barbara Stewart is a word weaver. Her poems build a bridge to those who read them. She loves justice. She loves nature. Her words can warn or comfort those who need them. She once taught music. She preaches peace. She weaves her words to bring release. Her words and thoughts now coalesce into Old Hands and other poems at the Garlic Press.
Yes, thank you, no. I don't think that's going to work. A poem? No.
But Barbara Stewart is a poet. I think this is a great way to honor her.
But this is a gala event. People are expecting a certain level of entertainment. Maybe some laughs, maybe music, not poetry. A poetry reading isn't most people's idea of a great night out on the town.
It is for Barbara Stewart. She regularly attends the poetry open mic night at the Normal Public Library. Well, she did before Zoom.
You know, Robert Sutherland is a poet too, and he was a publisher of poetry, Pikestaff Press. I don't think we should write off this poetry idea.
Look, it would be a really good poem. That was just an example. It wouldn't have to rhyme. It could be free verse.
Shakespeare was a poet, and Jerry Ringer was the president of the Illinois Shakespeare Festival Society.
Yes, Shakespeare quality poetry. Robert Sutherland, Barbara Stewart quality poetry.
I'm thinking no to a poetry reading, but let's table this for now.
Could it be a musical? I mean, you've had songs at past galas, right?
Yes, but you'd have to enunciate very clearly to deliver historical information through song lyrics.
Well, Jerry and Carol Ringer sing in their First Presbyterian Church choir, and hymn lyrics can be clearly enunciated. We could adapt hymn lyrics to history lyrics.
Yes, music and history. Which reminds me, Barbara Stewart picked the perfect 1,976 record album for the Normal Public Library just in time for the country's bicentennial in 1976, back in the days of vinyl. It was a reissue of George M. Cohen's Yankee Doodle Dandy.
What about something a little bit more contemporary, relevant, and hip? Like Hamilton, the musical. That's entirely based on history. A hip-hop musical.
A hip-hop musical for the History Makers Gala. No, just no.
Why not?
Plus, we're on a budget. I mean, we can't afford to pay all those musicians and singers.
I'm a singer.
Me too.
What about a rock musical? I bet those history makers rocked their world back in the day. Let the history in.
Look, we don't have to decide anything right now. This is just a brainstorming session. We need to think about what all the honorees have in common and then devise a theater piece to tell the audience a little bit about each one, okay?
Could I go back to the hymn idea?
Please.
Jerry and Carol Ringer are very involved with the symphony as well as their church choir. There's a beautiful hymn based upon a melody by Finnish composer Jean Sibelius. Could I demonstrate?
Sally, do you have anything?
This is my song about the Ringers, a song of praise for loving volunteers. In church and town, they celebrate the singers. They give their time, their wealth, their hearts, their tears. They help us see the way to true donation. For generosity, we hold them dear. This is my song for Barbara Stewart.
This is my song for Marilyn and Bob. They share their lives, they stand up for the voiceless. They all speak out for justice loud and clear. Oh, hear our song for history makers, a song of praise for those we hold so dear.
Well, that was beautiful. You know, that could work. I mean, it's a dignified and heartfelt entertainment. Tell me more about the volunteer work in the community service.
The Ringers were Philanthropist of the Year in 2009, awarded at the 10th anniversary celebration of the Illinois Prairie Community Foundation, and so humble about it. Carol said she was stunned since there were so many others in the community who deserve the same recognition.
We really do have a wonderful community full of volunteers and philanthropists.
Jerry was the 1999 Volunteer of the Year for the Mark Center, now known as Mark First.
The Ringers participated in Thanksgiving with Friends, an annual event for the developmentally disabled with food, fellowship, music, dancing.
Jerry was a local ophthalmologist, and he used to travel to Africa to provide free services and eye surgery to people there.
Of the gifts they have given is the gifts that we see. That's a gift from Jerry Ophthalmology.
What is ophthalmology anyway? I mean, how is it different from optometry?
It's not testing your vision to see if you need glasses. It's the diagnosing and treating of various eye disorders like cataracts and glaucoma.
It's the deep care of our eyes as the fragile organs of sight. But yes, Dr. Ringer helps us with our vision beyond good eyesight.
A visionary helping us with our vision and beyond.
Oh, John. Of the gifts they have given is the gifts that we see. That's a gift from Jerry
Ophthalmology.
Right. And when we see ourselves from beyond hindsight, 'twill be in a future of love and delight.
When true discretion is obtained, to do what's right won't have to be explained. We'll see exactly what's right till we're 20/20 in our own sight.
Oh, I saw what you did there. You got the idea of hindsight is 20/20 in the lyrics.
And beyond.
Yes, we should work in how all our history makers are visionaries. Yeah. 'Tis a gift to have vision, 'tis a gift that we see, 'tis a gift possessed by all our honorees. And when they give their gifts in the place we live, they show us how we ourselves might give.
Back to community we go, to work and to play our good we know. And when we see ourselves from beyond hindsight, 'twill be in a future that's come round right.
That could work. Maybe even with some harmonizing.
I'll work on it.
I do like the hymn idea, but I would like to go back to the poetry idea. Look, both Robert Sutherland and Barbara Stewart are big fans of poetry. Here's some history from the 1970s. Robert Sutherland was present and a witness for the ACLU at a dance ISU put on for the Gay Liberation Front.
That's the organization that eventually evolved into Pride at ISU.
And the ACLU is the American Civil Liberties Organization. Yeah.
Robert and some students for a Democratic Society were there to help guard the door against some football players who were expected to crash the party and bust it up. The football players didn't show up, but you know who did?
The great beat poet Allen Ginsberg, who was in town to give a poetry reading at Illinois Wesleyan and came over to ISU to see what was happening at the Gay Liberation Front party. Oh, here, Sally, help me out. Okay. John. Pretty soon, everybody was dancing. Woo! There was a great band playing. The strobe lights were thudding on and off. Soon, long chains of dancers were snaking through the room, frozen in mid-motion by the flashing lights.
Allen Ginsberg and Dashikian Beats sat cross-legged on the floor writing a poem by strobe light.
When the party was over, Robert gave Ginsberg a ride back to Illinois Wesleyan. When they were approaching Bloomington, Ginsberg turned to him and said, "Do they really call this town normal?" And Robert said, "Yes, they do."
Love it. A major American poet making a normal joke.
Oh, I have an idea. Well, it's still the hymn idea, but also poetry. Because you know, essentially, song lyrics are poems. And the great African-American poet James Weldon Johnson wrote a song with his brother J. Rosamond Johnson intended to celebrate the birthday of Abraham Lincoln.
Yes, it was sung in Jacksonville, Florida by 500 black school children. It became beloved across the South and is now sung as a hymn in many churches across the U.S. I think I have it here.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring. Ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of a new day began. Let us march on till victory is won.
Good song, challenging song. Are you thinking of adapting the verses to the History Makers?
Yep. I like how singing hymns brings us together and brings together the arts. Carol Ringer is a great arts advocate. Jerry, too. They sponsor plays at Heartland Theater.
So of the Sutherlands, all these history makers support the arts. That's something they all have in common.
Carol was a woman of distinction in the arts the very first year it was awarded by the YWCA. She says that arts help define the quality of life.
She says, even if you are able to put food on the table, culture is needed for the soul, mind, and spirit.
She believes in something for everyone. Symphony, opera, jazz, theater, dance.
Poetry?
Well, sure, poetry. And libraries and museums. Well, she once said if you really wanted to, you could do more than one thing every night of the week.
This is a great community for the arts.
Lift up the arts in praise, something for all our days, feeding the mind, the soul, the spirit. Let our rejoicing ring out from the rooftops. Sing out to your shore, the world can hear it. Sing a song full of respect for all humans who live here. Sing a song full of what nurture we're able to give here. Giving our blood, sweat, tears, learning to face our fears, giving our all till we give all to all. Thanks.
Speaking of giving blood, Jerry Ringer literally gave blood, gallons of blood during blood drives over the years. He was a medical man. He knew it was needed.
You know, I like how this hymn connects with the Sutherlands and their work for civil rights and open housing in Normal in the 1960s. Yes. You know what made Jerry an activist in the first place, right?
No, what?
Well, Marilyn, probably. She was a pacifist Mennonite nursing major at Wichita State University in Kansas when he met her. Well, and his good upbringing. But what made him an activist locally is when Carol Cox asked him to take pictures of the Bloomington Normal Christmas Parade in 1966.
Oh, yeah. Merlin Kennedy was dressed as Santa, and the police made him get down from the NAACP float. There'd been an objection to having two Santas in the parade.
Ridiculous.
Meaning there was an objection to a black Santa. But there was no actual reason to arrest Mr. Kennedy, so the police just delayed him.
But Mr. Kennedy walked behind the parade afterwards so the kids could run up to him anyways.
Merlin Kennedy was a history maker too, wasn't he?
Yes, and when Robert Sutherland took Merlin Kennedy's picture at that parade, it changed Bob forever.
Yeah, the Sutherlands have worked hard for this community and for open housing. I mean, it was clear that blacks were being discriminated against. One day, they went to hear a sermon on brotherly love. Afterwards, during fellowship and coffee, they overheard someone say, "These people," meaning the open housing demonstrators, "want too much too soon, and they ought to just line them up and shoot them."
No.
Yes. Well, that was too much for pacifist Marilyn and activist Bob. They got together with friends and formed the Community for Social Action organization and hired Pastor Jack Porter to direct it.
Hey, wasn't he a history maker too?
Yep, him too.
See, these history makers really did rock their world back in the day. Sutherland's superstars rocking their world right here where we are.
Anyway, the CSA got together and raised money to send Jack Porter to law school, and he became an attorney with Prairie Legal Services, providing free legal services for those who needed help but couldn't afford it.
Fight for the rights of all. Listen and hear the call.
Do what you can for man.
And humankind. Oh no, that's not going to rhyme with anything.
Fight for the rights of all. Listen and hear the call. Do what you can and know you lead the way. You who have done what's right, lead us into the light. Lead us forever in the right. We say, let's link arms, standing with those who are standing for freedom. Let's link arms, letting the brave know that we really need 'em. United hand in hand, may we forever stand true to our town, true to our prairie land.
That's exactly it. That verse captures the time that Robert Sutherland helped protect black students who were staging a sit-in at the coffee shop in the ISU Student Union. Police had just killed 2 Black Panthers in Chicago, and students at ISU were upset. While the black students occupied the coffee shop, Bob and 4 colleagues linked arms in front of the glass doors to keep out angry white students. They prevented a riot.
No wonder Robert Sutherland won the Humanitarian Award from the Illinois Municipal Human Relations Association.
Oh, and the League of Women Voters gave him the Florence Pfeiffer Borer Award for his community service.
I love learning about the history as we prepare for the History Makers Gala. I mean, these people are amazing. Innovators, protesters. It really helps me understand where I live. It keeps everything in context.
Did you know the Sutherlands protested the Vietnam War? And then in 1991, the Gulf War.
Oh, yeah.
And then in 2007, with the second President Bush, Marilyn had to bring her anti-war protest sign out of retirement. She joined a Move On protest against sending more troops to Iraq. She said it felt like a rerun. Feels like a rerun. It feels like a rerun.
No, sorry. No hip hop, no rock and roll, no rock musicals.
When Barbara Stewart was on the McLean County Board, she tried to get them to pass a code of ethics for its members. Why should they try to regulate the behavior of county employees when they couldn't even regulate their own behavior in writing? Which brings me back to poetry.
Speaking of writing, the Sutherlands wrote letters to the editor of the Pantograph defending their personal beliefs and everyone's constitutional rights. They are a very brave couple.
They sure are. Back in the 60s, the Sutherlands and 4 other ISU faculty members received death threats in the form of postcards thought to be sent by the Ku Klux Klan and Minutemen.
Really?
Yes, scary, right? In our community, get this. Someone sent them a message with letters cut out from newspapers and magazines that read, "Communist, the fire in your garage will be in your bedroom next." And sure enough, they found evidence of a fire in their garage. So Marilyn and Bob taught their 2 boys how to escape their second-story bedroom in case of fire. They tied a rope to the bed and told the boys to toss it out the window and shinny down. Now, they did didn't want to scare the boys, and they didn't. The boys thought it would be great fun, and the Sutherlands didn't let themselves be intimidated.
Nope, they pushed back. They reported the threats to the FBI and the Normal Chief of Police, and miraculously, all threats and harassment stopped.
Although Robert thought that their phones were being tapped by the FBI because of their protest work, and also that some of his students in his classrooms were actually FBI spies planted in his classroom.
Whoa, those were difficult times.
We're in difficult times again.
This is my song for those who truly listen, a song of peace for those who truly care. In peace may all our country come together. I see ahead that we've no time to spare. We all know now that hindsight's 2020. We thank our history makers, they were there.
Hindsight is 2020 for most of us, but our history makers are visionaries.
And helpers, as Mr. Rogers might say.
Helpers who love art, science, and music.
And justice and mercy and peace.
And don't forget poetry. You know, Marilyn and Bob established a fellowship for creative writing at ISU.
Right, and the Ringers helped build a big science building at Cornell College.
Right, and Barbara Stewart, way back in the 1950s, when she was Barbara Finley, a student at ISNU, helped establish the student union.
This is my song for Barbara Stewart.
This is my song for Marilyn and Bob.
This is my song for Carol and for Jerry. A song of thanks, we sing it loud and clear. Oh, hear our song for history makers, a song of praise for those we hold so dear.
It could work. I mean, a sort of hymn sing with dialogue interspersed. Clearly enunciated, no hip hop, no rock and roll, but maybe a little conga dancing.
So no poetry.
I still don't know if that's gonna work.
Well, we can't know, can we? Till we try it.
I guess you're right. Hindsight is 2020.
That's it. Hindsight is 2020, a poem with an epigraph by Margaret Atwood. As all historians know, the past is a great darkness and filled with echoes. Voices may reach us from it. Wow, wait, echoes. Like Illinois Voices Theater echoes us presenting the History Makers Gala. Now, that is a wonderful coincidence. Oh no, wait a minute. Let's make it a choral poem. Hindsight is 2020.
A poem.
No one can know when we begin, when we attempt that great thing we hold in our minds, our hearts, how it will end.
None of us can know, however brave, however visionary, the legacy that we'll leave.
It is always a risk, our time here on earth, an act of courage. Courage, a word that takes heart and puts it in our hands and in our actions, that makes us steadfast and generous.
We can always look back saying hindsight is 2020. We can always look forward hoping for the best. But now, let us link arms in solidarity. Let us sing praise. Let us give thanks.
Let us clap hands for those we honor here.
I think I started being aware of you in the early 90s. I don't remember whether it was school board or the Illinois Symphony birth or what it was, maybe both, but I was aware of you. As we began preparing for the 1994 Festival of Trees, Ralph Duty said to me, and I want to ask Carol Ringer to chair volunteers. And I thought, well, I know her, okay. And since then, it has been a delight to get to know you. When I was invited to join the museum board, you were there, and I got to know you better that way. You were on the symphony board. You've been involved in the multicultural leadership group. You have been involved in many active things in this community. If you were not leading them, you were at least there, attending, supporting. It seemed like where I went, there you were. And I'm sure you were at more places than I was. You knew the right way to lead and the right way to do volunteer work with nonprofits. We're very proud of you for that. You've been the epitome of a professional volunteer and a community leader. And we want to thank you very much.
Thank you.
I must say that film brought back, I knew a lot of those events from all of those people. So. Gotta get my glasses out, I'm sorry. The trouble with introducing someone that you have known for over 40 years is you know too much. The trouble with introducing someone with multiple shared experiences is you know too much. I have known Jerry Ringer through church, where he has been very active, serving on committees, the governing board, and chairing the committee in charge of building the first phase of First Presbyterian's current facilities. I was on the committee with Jerry when we raised funds for building the current Illinois Shakespeare Festival complex. I served with Jerry on the development committee of the Illinois Prairie Community Foundation, and the list of shared experiences goes on, including ISU theater trips to New York, where I first met his twin brother, mistaking him momentarily for Jerry, although up close, you can tell the difference. Jerry was also my eye doctor at Gala, and I can assure you he mastered the art of the mumble when dictating to his assistant. But I want to highlight this point. While building a busy practice, raising a family, and being very active at church, he still had time to do all the things listed in your program. Many would have said family, church, work were enough, but not Jerry. He added much community service. And if Jerry joined a board or committee, he did the work and attended the meetings. In Kiwanis, he sold the cheese and worked the pancake breakfast. Now I wish to highlight a couple of specific areas of activity. The first is his commitment to education in various ways locally, but most assuredly his devotion to his alma mater at Cornell College in Iowa, where he has been a major financial supporter and served on the board for several decades. He and Carol also financially support her alma mater of Northwestern University. The other area I want to mention is Jerry's support of the arts. Locally, this includes the BCPA, the Shakespeare Festival, the Illinois Symphony, Heartland Theater, and many, many others. Regionally, it includes the Krannert Center in Urbana. And he does not just financially support the arts, he attends, and then attends, and then attends some more. Education and the arts, two things that make the world a better place. The first is critical, the second makes life worth living. Jerry Ringer is truly a person making the world a better place than it would be without his contributions to it, and I am glad to call him a friend.
One you in the middle, one of us in your second.
Stand by Jerry. Wherever Jerry stops, you stand.
Okay, Jerry. I have to stand by you, Jerry.
This will have a picture later. Tonight it doesn't. But Jerry and Carol, we present you with this plaque to thank you so much for all you have done.
So much.
Well, thank you. I should turn it around.
Yeah, you should. Tori, do another one with it around. Very good. Thank you so much.
Carol and I would like to thank the McLean County Museum of History for this honor. When I look at tonight's other honorees and think of past honorees, I'm humbled to think of us getting this honor. 50 plus years ago, when Carol and I were looking for a location where we would live and I would practice, we had certain criteria for both. Bloomington Normal offered much of what we wanted in both cases. This community has treated us well and given us the means and the opportunity to, in some way, support the many organizations and parties that make Bloomington Normal the place that has given us the joy and opportunities that have reinforced the thought that we made the right decision years ago to choose Bloomington Normal for the next stage of our lives. Years ago, one of my partners, Bob Reardon, gave me a sketch for my birthday. It showed a couple sitting at a breakfast table, and the caption read, "Last night I dreamed the Metropolitan Opera was putting on Madame Butterfly, and I was singing all the parts. And I was hoping you'd be there, but you said you had a committee meeting." Now, Carol and I have never quite figured out which one of the two of us was making that statement.
So, in reflecting on these past 50 years, I've come to realize how fortunate we have been. First, Jerry grew up in a family where you just did give back to the community, so it was very easy to continue that practice. I've additionally been fortunate because he's been willing to endure a not-so-nice house a lot of times, and what I would call rather odd and sometimes quasi-meals, but it's worked. And then all those evenings where one of us was gone to a meeting for sure. But the visionary change agent quality of so many of our past honorees and those who are being honored again tonight are just, it makes me just feel, oh my gosh, I don't belong here. That's not my forte, for sure, to be the visionary, but I've been so fortunate that I've been able to help some of those visions along, learning a lot along the way, I must add.
So again, thank you for honoring us tonight. We're humbled and honored to join the others who are receiving the award this evening and those who have received it in the past. Thank you very much.
Oh, there you are. Here I are.
All right. Well, I have known my dear friend Barbara Stewart since those days, probably back in 1970s at the Normal Public Library, in the middle of all those LPs and audio cassettes back then, and 8-track tapes, and 8mm films that we loaned at the time. And Barbara figured out a way to adapt a cataloging system for the AV materials, which were very different than all the books. So that was the first I knew of her organizing ability and her, what I call her very effective positive persistence. And if you know Barbara, you know that she can be very difficult to say no to about anything. She has got many things accomplished in our community, some of which you heard in the presentation earlier. I love the whole music and poetry thing as well. She's an accomplished musician as well as a writer and a teacher of English and music. So I've learned a lot from her over all these many years we've known each other, and I think many of the rest of you here would say the same. And for many, many more people in our community and all parts of our community, she has always been one who stood up and said, something needs to change. What can we do? How can we do it together? And that is such an important message for all of us in all times. And I thank her for continuing to push at the rest of us and pull us along once in a while and inspire us as well at every turn. So thank you, dear friend, for all you have done and been, and for being a great poet as well. And I am delighted to be passing this on to you. Nobody told me this was going to be part of the deal, but I'm very glad to be here too. So thank you, dear.
Thank you. I get to hug you.
All right, we can do that now. Thank you.
Now you want a picture?
Yes, put you in the middle. Come on, in the middle there, up
There's
behind
no
the podium.
middle.
There we are, okay.
Isn't any middle.
All right.
How do you get in the middle of two people?
That's all right. I thought Carolyn was going to be in the picture. That's all right. Now you get to talk for a while.
Well, not too long. I've only given 3 or 4 minutes. I do thank Ruthie. Things like this don't happen unless there's a warm-hearted, wonderful person that wants to do things like this, and then let me have a chance at talking. I want to say that getting this award has made me happy for a whole year, thanks to COVID. I feel extremely lucky because I have gotten to work with wonderful, wonderful committee members, some of the best people you could ever imagine. And now I'm part of this very fine history gala created by the amazing museum committee. I'm very grateful to every single person involved in these things. Good things happen when people devote their time and do things really, really well, just as you have done. Carolyn, as I said, told me I have 3 or 4 minutes, and I couldn't resist the temptation when she told me that to push a very special project of mine, violence prevention. After all, our history does give us a guide for solving present and future problems. Please know that after much failure, the past 40 years have seen the national development of 4 amazing, nearly 100% effective solutions for severe human problems with violence, like the racial injustices that we have seen so evident lately. They work, these programs, because instead of perpetuating violence, they actually prevent it. by attacking the cause, not the symptoms. These 4 solutions, called Healthy Start, Head Start, Big Brothers, Big Sisters, and the second step. They work so well because they begin violence prevention training at birth. This involves the parents, of course, and covers the child's years through high school. And they work because they gradually but surely change attitudes by training children in such skills as empathy, anger management, and impulse control, and problem-solving skills. We have all 4 of these programs in this county. Corey Tello and I had a lot to do with getting the second step into Metcalf and Bloomington schools' curricula. Corey's right there. Put your hand up, Corey. The trouble is, not one of these 4 programs is serving even half of the children needing them. I've always believed that knowledge and transparency, coupled with thoughtfulness and perseverance, can inspire us to move outside of ourselves and work to solve problems. Perhaps in some way, this celebration will help these programs grow to capacity in the not too distant future. Just think what a change that would make. Thank you.
Well, Marilyn, life is a journey with many adventures. Sometimes we know where we are going, and sometimes we don't. During this journey of life, we have many experiences, some expected, some not. Some experiences are downers, while other experiences can be mountaintops. But all during this journey, we meet people. People like us, people different than us. We meet people who challenge our ideas. We meet people who stretch our thinking. And best of all, we meet people who we learn to call our friends. Marilyn is someone I could mention in all of the above categories. I have known Marilyn since 1966 when we moved to Normal. She and Bob and the boys lived just around the corner from our duplex. It was heartwarming to learn they had also just arrived from Iowa City and graduate school. Marilyn and I carpooled our children to Metcalf and celebrated that we were both nurses. Over the years, our paths crossed many times, socially and professionally. In the 1970s, Marilyn and I worked at the Mennonite Hospital Intensive Care, the 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. shift. During this era, there was an extreme nursing shortage affecting the entire community. We worked long hours with many mandatory extra shifts. The discussion arose among the nurses at all of the hospitals in this community that maybe we should have a union. So we had a voice in the administration. Marilyn and I were selected as the voices for our hospital because if you get fired, you have husbands with salaries to help pay the mortgage. Most of the nursing professionals were single women with children. Ultimately, we didn't form a union because the hospital recognized our value and compensated. Marilyn was a steady voice about the role of women in the family and in professional life. Marilyn embraced our profession of nursing because of her love and respect of humankind. Marilyn was a voice of professional growth and a voice of responsibility, while demanding respect from other professionals in healthcare. Marilyn was a teacher, teaching the patient about their cardiac condition and teaching the new nursing graduates about understanding the patient as a person, not just a medical condition. Marilyn has been a voice in my life about the need to take personal responsibility in implementing social justice in all the avenues of one's life. Marilyn is a woman who believes that we are each other's keepers, that through our actions, realizing that there is responsibility, there is risk, that social justice means justice and fairness for everyone. Marilyn.
Thank you. My turn to speak?
Yes.
Go ahead. I was very fortunate. I grew up in a farm family in central Kansas, and we were Mennonites. And the Mennonite tradition was, 1, pacifism, 2, you are your neighbor's keeper. And that has both have influenced me for the rest of my life. I first started hitting the streets in terms of marching when the Vietnam War was going on, and I would take my little boys, whether they wanted to or not, on every anti-war march there was in town. Then too, when we moved to town in 1964, arriving with 2 children, the youngest 16 days old and the oldest 2 years old. And this was not a very nice place to live. There really wasn't. This had been a town where the university was small and Normal had its own ways. And all these people coming from the outside with very different ideas on how to live life, that was not very well accepted. And over the years, we helped by the arts. There was not much in the way of the arts in this community. There was very, very much racism. And slowly, we began to work on community groups, and things have so improved that I find this now a wonderful place to live. My children wonder what has happened in the years since they became adults and moved away when we say it's a good place to live. I do thank you very much for the honor. I feel we are all history makers, and I'm happy to join the host of all the others who have been recognized for that. But those who have not been recognized are also history makers. Thank you.
Now, congratulations, Jerry, Carol, and Barbara, all dear friends. With this literary gentleman here, I thought I should find a quote from his favorite author, Charles Ludwig Dodgson, which most of you probably never heard of him by that name, who wrote, "Realize what the true object is in life, that it is not pleasure, not knowledge, not even fame itself, but it is the development of character and the rising to a higher nobler, pure standard. Now, you may know that author better as Lewis Carroll. And there's an imp standing next to me in the tradition of Alice in Wonderland, because I think there's an impish side of Bob and a humor side that often gets lost in all the serious topics. But two things to think about with both Bob and Marilyn is arts and a voice. And I first met these two, and when you watch the slideshow, there was a photo there of Marilyn holding a sign that said, "Boycott lettuce." I was at ISU 2 weeks before I met these two in the summer of 1973 at a farm worker picket line I had invited to and I didn't know anything about, but I went along to learn about it and soon got very involved with the farm workers. But Bob and Marilyn, for many of us youthful, rambunctious activists, were the voice of reason. They helped direct us. They told us when's the right time to get really excited and sometimes when it was time to cool our jets a little bit. And of course, we looked at them as the ancient sages, but they were only maybe 10 years older than the rest of us. But they were the glue that held so many people together in this community and did so many good things. And so when we think of a voice, we think of a voice in the arts. We think of a voice for those that are in jail. We think of a voice for those with various sexual orientations. We think of those who are isolated because of their race. Our human family is only richer when every voice is heard. And these two have made their lives work to make sure that voices are heard, that we are a better community because we recognize all people and include all people. The other thing too, Bob is a great writer, but he's also an artist. So I invite you to delve into the Eastern Illinois University archive files of the Post-American, the local underground newspaper, and find the covers that Bob produced for that publication. And he also did a beautiful book, Sticklewort and Feverfew, which he not only wrote but illustrated. Just a marvelous volume that speaks so highly of him. And when I think of voice, I think of all the students, all the young people, all the friends who wanted to be a poet, Barbara, who wanted to be a writer. And this man not only showed them the way with gentle guidance, opened their eyes, polished their writing abilities, but gave them that voice also. So, two wonderful people, two good friends, and congratulations, Bob. Congratulations, Marilyn. Thank you.
Thank you all. It's a great honor to be so named, and it is a humbling experience. One thing that has dawned on me at age 83, after a long germination, is that none of us can do it alone. We're all part of groups that share interests, share values, share concerns, and we find those people and we gather together and then we do what we have to do in order to achieve these things that we feel to be important. And I told some people at the NAACP during one of their Zoom meetings last week, they had brought the chiefs of police together for a kind of a discussion, a sort of a town meeting discussion on potential police reforms. And I said, you're all history makers because you're engaging in these matters. And I feel that to the very marrow of my bones. And there is something that I would like to share with you that many of you do not know about. And that is, hot off the press, is a book by a woman named Elizabeth Hinton called America on Fire, just off the press. It'll be available, at your local bookstore or on Amazon, I suppose. She is a professor of law and African American history at Yale University. And in writing her book, which is about the various, as she calls them, insurrections that black people have engaged in between 1962 and 1968 specifically, and which we see unfolding before us now. She has determined and compellingly, I was a compulsive reader, but it was a compelling thesis. She says that these things which the establishment has called riots and militarized the police to take care of in cities all over the United States are actually revolutions, insurrections by the black people who just simply cannot take anymore, because the society at large, in terms of its institutionalized racism, has simply failed to do what was necessary in the wake of the Kerner Commission report and these other things, which had a program for how cities could improve their race relations. She has shown that the cities failed, that we're going to be heading for more difficulties, and so on. Okay, that's what has just happened. What happened in 1970 was, in Cairo, Illinois, which is a city at the very tip of Illinois at the confluence of the Mississippi and Ohio rivers, in a floodplain. The city is surrounded by levees to keep the waters out. Racism destroyed the town, and beginning in 1967-68, things got so bad between the black and the white residents of Cairo that the black residents decided to boycott the white businesses that did not hire black workers, but would rather hire poor whites from Kentucky and Missouri and bring them across the river and take their paychecks home, rather than hire black people in Cairo. Things got so very bad that Governor Ogilvie sent the state troopers down. A group called the White Hats became vigilantes in town. These were the white businessmen. And for 86 nights, there were rifle shots into the black community, which was a housing project. And there are, in this pamphlet, as I'll show you in a moment, photographs of people with bullet holes in their houses, bullet holes in their cars, and so on. The United Front, the black group, said, we need to have people in Illinois know what's going on. They sent out an invitation. People went down to take part in their Saturday boycott marches against the black businessmen. Bob Hathaway at that table there was one who went with me in 1970 to see what was going on. And we marched, and it was pretty awful. The white townspeople were very hostile. We were told at the church where we bedded down on sleeping bags that night, don't go outside, you might get shot. Well, that was sobering, and we didn't go outside. 3 years later, the boycott ended. The town of Cairo, which had about 10,000 people in 1900, now has 2,000 people left, most of them black, and the whites have gone. Kathy McKinney, a friend of ours who lives at Westminster Village with us, working for the Pantagraph in 1970, went with us to Cairo, and she was going to write a story for the Pantagraph about what was going on in Cairo. Pantagraph refused to print it when she got back because she didn't deal with both sides of the question. Well, we decided that Kathy McKinney's article was so important that people in McLean County should know what she wrote to show what was going on in Cairo, because we didn't really know beyond just rumor. So the Community for Social Action and some others in town produced this booklet reproducing Kathy McKinney's article and statements by the various people who went on that trip to Cairo in 1970. And we brought it out and distributed it free of charge in the county. And so it goes. 50 years goes by. And here in 2020-21, I get word from Bill Kemp in the Historical Museum that this book is coming out and they want permission to use photographs from the Cairo pamphlet. And I said, certainly. I said, the organization that created it is now defunct. I don't know where the negatives are. I edited the thing back in 1970. And I said, I'll write to Elizabeth Hinton back in Yale. And I did. I said, of course you may use these pictures. As far as I know, they're in the public domain. The organizations that created the pamphlet are all defunct. And she wrote back and says, well, that's really wonderful. Thank you so much. And I'll send you a copy of the book when it's off the press. And here it is with the pictures from the pamphlet included. And I mentioned that I had been in Iowa City in graduate school. Oh, she says, my father was in Iowa City. Al Hinton, he was a football player, and he did a professional tour of football playing after he graduated. And I said, yeah, I was his tutor. So this came together like that. She says, you knew my father? And I said, yeah. So she wrote to her father and says, do you remember Sutherland, your tutor? And he said, yeah, he's a good guy. That was good to hear, because I was tutoring him in Plato's dialogues and the Greek tragedies so that he could remain eligible to play football for Iowa. And he did after graduation. And then he went on and got a PhD in art because he was an artist. And he now has an international reputation for the kinds of artwork that he does. And that's kind of interesting. So here's what I'm trying to say with this spiel. It all comes together in interesting ways. And here, after we, concerned with what was going on in Cairo, went to Cairo and experienced it for ourselves, and then wrote up the account so McLean County would know what was going on in Cairo. This book somehow has surfaced again, provided pictures for her book, which is trying to make a contribution to some subdued parts of American history that some people would just as soon not see, that the communities and municipalities did not do what they should have done to rectify the situations that were causing the black insurrections, and contribute to our ongoing painful dialogue in this culture about institutional racism. So I think this is going to be, Hinton's book is going to be a very important book. It's going to make a significant contribution to that dialogue. And here, 50 years after the fact, something that the Museum of History in Bloomington Normal has done surfaces yet once again, and the cycle goes on. So with that, I've talked long enough. Thank you very much, and keep working.
Right here. Yeah, that's good. Good. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you all for being here. My name is Tom Eder. I am the incoming, and I'm proud to report the results of our vote. The now unanimously elected new president of the McLean County Museum of History. But we did, Norris Porter and his team have put together a wonderful evening with Carolyn. And we did have a unanimous vote approving the amended motion that we had to approve the new officers of the board and the new board members for the coming year. So thank you all those who have followed this event online and for your votes, and I'm happy to announce those results. In closing the evening, just a couple of things, and then we'll depart. What a wonderful time it's been to be together. I have three things. First, some thank yous. Bob said some of them before as he opened the evening, but I'd like to thank, first of all, the sponsors of our evening, those who have contributed and helped put on this, what has become a true community event to honor some of the wonderful people who have shaped Bloomington Normal. It's an amazing evening, and we will be happy to be back at Illinois State University, I think, next year on June 15th in what had become a wonderful affair, but we've done a good job in pulling this together tonight and creating a special evening for these people, our honorees. So I want to thank the sponsors, Julie, and our staff here at the museum, along with our volunteers, who are the lifeblood of our organization. But thanks to Julie and Norris and all of those who worked hard tonight to put our evening together. Carolyn Yaki deserves a special thank you. She is just amazing what she's done. So I want to thank Carolyn and other board members who have helped her. And I do also want to extend a deep thanks to Bob Watkins for his leadership of the organization for the last 2 years. We have been through some turbulent times. We're undergoing some enormously important and long overdue restorations to our facility, but he's been a wonderful person to follow and to emulate. I hope I can in the next 2 years, and his wisdom and sacrifice for the organization in 2 terms as our president is noteworthy. So thank you, Bob, for all that you've done. Just one more time, a congratulations to our 5 honorees tonight. I'm a born Bloomingtonian. In my 67 years, I've only lived away for 10 years in my early years as an educator, but I am humbled by what they have done to make this community better, the kind of community that I'm proud to have raised my children in, and that I'm proud to bring my grandchildren back to as they visit me. But their energy, their self-sacrifice and selflessness is, it overwhelms me as I listen to their accomplishments. And so I want to thank them for what they've done for our community to make it the kind of community that it is today. One that's devoted to justice, one that's doing its very best to become a better community every day, and you have led the way in significant measure through your lives. So thank you so much for all that you have done. And my third comment is simply to one of invitation. All of those who have watched our evening online, all of you here in the room, but all of you who are watching, we want to invite you to come and visit our newly reopened award-winning museum, one of 3% of accredited museums in this nation. This is a community jewel. We hope you will come and visit us here now that we are able to reopen after this long, dry winter of our museum's history. But also visit us online, because as Julie pointed out in our State of the Museum comments early in the evening, we have developed, Tori is a part of that, our team, all of our educators, all of our people have developed through this year, through these 15 months or so, they've built on what we had, but have built an amazing online experience for people. So we hope you'll visit us at mchistory.org. This is truly your museum and your history that we celebrate tonight. So hopefully you will take our invitation to come visit us, but also to become members of the museum and the society. What we do, the work we do, is supported by your membership. So hopefully when you come, you'll see what we have here, and also will want to become a member and help continue the work that's gone on. So thank you very much for the evening, and congratulations again, and good night.